There was a headline once I saw, it said, Saddam Hussein, the next Hitler. And I felt my blood pressure either rise or drop, something dramatic, at the vision of that six-letter word Hitler in print. And even though I'm a pacifist by nature, I began to think, my goodness, if I really did think there was a villain in the world as bad as Hitler is, would I put aside my pacifism in order to take up arms against him? Would I really retire my political philosophies and my moral philosophies in the interest of larger need? I didn't know the answer to that question, but I saw how the word Hitler inflamed my sensibilities.
Alrighty, I guess let's get started. So, Wicked is the musical precursor to The Wizard of Oz, and it actually goes into The Wizard of Oz, but that's beside the point. There's a story we think we all know: a wizard, a witch, and a girl in a bubble, living in a land where everything looks green if you're willing to keep your tinted glasses on. But as soon as you take those glasses off, when you stop swallowing the propaganda, the shine fades and the cracks finally show. The wizard is not a miracle worker. He's a marketing campaign. He arrives with a blinding smile, offering promises of hope so vague they could mean everything or absolutely nothing. He rules by spectacle, by story, by the belief that if he says something loudly and repeated enough, people will eventually accept it as truth. And like any successful fascist leader, he understands the first rule.
The best way to bring folks together is to give them a real good enemy.
Always give the people a villain. Not a real one, just a convenient silhouette they can project every disappointment onto. In Oz, the scapegoats are the animals. In our world, history keeps offering new candidates. Before a regime can control its citizens, it must first convince them that somebody else poses the threat. That's where the animals come in. They are the first to lose their voices, their classrooms, their rights, and their dignity. And no one notices at first because scapegoating never starts with violence, it starts with inconvenience. The rhetoric begins with phrases like they're too loud, too different, or too something, and slowly expands into a cultural vocabulary that separates us from them. The wizard doesn't need logic, he just needs a group that can absorb the state's failures. A population plausible enough to be rewritten as a problem. He creates the narrative and the people fill in the rest because it's easier than admitting the real villain is the man behind the curtain. The great trick of fascism is the way cruelty starts to feel logical once you've accepted the idea that someone deserves it. In Oz, the animals become the mechanism that turns fear into policy, policy into prejudice, and prejudice into culture. This pattern has echoed across history, from the early restrictions on Jewish professionals in the years before the Holocaust to modern ICE raids that criminalize prisons itself. Once everyone agrees the scapegoat is the problem, the wizard never has to solve anything. He simply has to keep pointing at them. Enter Madame Morrible. Flip it around, Wicked Witch. Sorry. The wizard's indispensable partner. If the wizard is the spectacle, Morrible is the script. She speaks in headlines and spins storms out of syllables, crafting narratives that make lies feel soothing and inevitable. Her propaganda works because it sounds familiar enough that no one stops to question it. She transforms cruelty into common sense, embedding it so deeply into culture that the people enforce the system for her. And then there's Glinda, the embodiment of polished complacency. She's the type of person who believes neutrality is a virtue, someone who crosses moral bridges without ever noticing the water below. She is beloved, harmless, and therefore deeply dangerous. Her willingness to go along with whatever maintains her comfort makes her the perfect citizen for a fascist regime. Most of us, if we're honest, are more Glinda than Elphaba, and that's the uncomfortable truth this story forces us to confront. Elphaba, Glinda, Elphaba, Glinda. I'm a witch, and I'm a witch. But which is which? Well, here's the stage. Elphaba Elphaba, however, embodies the figure authoritarianism fears most, the one who refuses to let the regime define reality. Her brilliance terrifies people who have only ever been taught how to follow, and her difference becomes a weapon used against her. Her so-called wickedness is simply her unwillingness to obey. But her real turning point comes when the wizard finally drops the act and admits he has no real power at all. The great and terrible leader, the man who floated into Oz like a god, is nothing more than a frightened bureaucrat with a microphone. And that's when something snaps for her. She realizes that fascism doesn't require genuine power, it just requires everyone to believe it exists. The danger isn't that he's all powerful, it's that he's weak, insecure, and willing to build an entire regime out of smoke just to hide that weakness. In that moment, Alphaba understands that the system isn't driven by strength, but by a desperate need to control anybody who exposes the illusion, especially those who hold power. It's not that fascism hates magic, it hates autonomy. It hates people who can't be repackaged, edited, or absorbed. Now, the wizard knows Alphaba is the threat he can't contain, so he weaponizes her Glindas, the pretty polished faces of the regime, to tempt her into compliance. He offers change like a coupon with an expiration date and partnership like a trap disguised as collaboration. Every promise dissolves the moment she touches it. It's almost poetic how desperately the system tries to absorb the one person capable of dismantling it. Now, the revelation that the wizard is her father adds another layer. The unsettling idea that the architect of oppression can also be the root of its resistance. Maybe that is the truth authoritarian regimes can never swallow, that every oppressive system eventually produces the person who will overthrow it. Every cruelty plants the seed of its own undoing. So, if Alphaba is our blueprint, how do we follow it? We start by reclaiming the things the wizard convinces us are useless. We take the brain the scarecrow thought he didn't have, the critical thinking we're encouraged to outsource to authority. We take the heart the Tin Man feared would make him weak, the empathy that refuses to disregard suffering. And we take the courage the lion believed he was unworthy of, the bravery to act when action makes you inconvenient. These qualities become tools, not for violence, but for refusal. Refusal for hate, refusal to obey blindly, refusal to pretend the system is working when everyone is silently drowning inside it. Fascism doesn't crumble from heroic battles. It dissolves when ordinary people stop cooperating. And by the end, no one truly wins. Glinda is adored by a world that doesn't know her, popularity as a form of exile, while Alphaba escapes with her integrity but not the credit she deserved. The regime continues, but only as a ghost haunting the people it broke. And yet the story isn't a tragedy, it's a blueprint. Because the kind of wickedness born from integrity is unstoppable. All it takes to burn the Emerald City down is one person who refuses to do what they're told.